All right, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining United Spinal Association Greater Philadelphia Chapter's March monthly educational webinar series. Tonight, we are really excited to have Nova McGiffert and Izzy Kaufman here for Unlocking Passion, Exploring Sexuality and Spinal Cord Injury. Nova McGiffert is the Healthy Sexuality Project Coordinator at the Institute on Disabilities. She provides holistic sexuality education for disabled folks, families, caregivers, and professionals. Nova facilitates a statewide network of sexuality and disability educators, trainers, and providers to improve positive sexuality education for disabled Pennsylvanians. She has a BA in sociology and more than 20 years of experience working with disabled folks as a family member, direct service provider, supports coordinator, educator, and community organizer. Izzy Kaufman works at Temple University as a program coordinator at the Institute on Disabilities with the Health Equity team. Izzy provides comprehensive sexuality education to people with disabilities, professionals, and family. Izzy trains on healthy relationships, gender identity, safety plans, sexual self-advocacy, and more. Izzy has a Master of Education in Human Sexuality Studies from Widener University. Izzy is a proud disabled person and is president of the Disability Pride Pennsylvania Board. Izzy has been working in the field for over 7 years. We're very excited to have both Nova and Izzy here with us tonight. If you have any questions during the webinar, if you can, hold them for the end, or you can put them in the chat and we'll have our presenters answer them at the end. If you'd rather engage in a verbal discourse, I can also unmute you. But also remember, if there are questions that come later, we'll provide some contact information if you'd like to reach out to Izzy and or Nova. And like all of our educational webinars, this will be posted on our YouTube channel, so you can always follow back up for this great information. All right, Izzy and Nova, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us and that warm introduction. So, hi, everybody. Welcome to Unlocking Passion. We're going to just jump right in. Let's jump in. Here we go. So yeah, I'm Izzy. I'm on the right-hand side, sitting in a wheelchair, just a little image description. Nova, go ahead and
Hi, y'all. My name is Nova McGiffert, and yeah, I'm the Healthy Sexuality Project Coordinator. There's an image of me smiling at the camera, got an asymmetrical haircut, and still do. That picture was a few years ago, but here we are.
All right, awesome. So now you know who we are. You know we're from the Institute on Disabilities. I'm going to go through this spiel kind of fast because you can look us up online at disabilities.temple.edu. But we are the University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities in Pennsylvania. So we provide education, research, and services with and for people with disabilities throughout their lives. And yes, we do a lot of different things. Oh, I also wanted to highlight another department that we have at the IOD, which is Tech Owl, is the Technology Assistive Technology Program for the state of PA. And they do a lot of different services, so you can definitely check them out on their website too to see like all of the programs that are going on at Tech Owl. So their website is techowlpa.org. But we help people find assistive technology. We have a lending library where people can try out technology, get it. We have ways of looking into funding. There's speech therapists on staff. We do a lot of community work. We have a community space. And there's a 3D printing program, and you can request free 3D printed tools. So if you're interested in that, you should go to the website and check it out. And we also do equipment donations. So if you're a person who has like an old wheelchair that's just been like sitting in the corner of your room for a while, and you're like, I'm not going to do anything with this, bring it to us because our person can refurbish it and hopefully give it out to somebody who could use it. So just wanted to highlight that Tech Owl is there for you if you need it. We're part of the Healthy Sexuality Project. And what we do is sexuality education, one-on-one education, group education, professional training, sessions like this where groups ask us to come in. And we know we're being recorded, so I might ask some questions for you to think about as you're going through. I just thought about that. Like I might ask questions, so just, where's my brain going? My brain is like somewhere else. I just ate dinner too. Okay, so we do a lot of different training. Nova runs a disability and sexuality facilitators, educators, and providers network. And if you're interested in joining that, if you work in the field of disability or sexuality education and around that realm, please join us. Reach out to us. Okay, so we're gonna pause for a minute. And if you're watching this at home, feel free to take a deep breath. I'm gonna do it right now. We're talking about sexuality today. We are talking about things that might be really personal. Feel free to have whatever feelings or whatever happens is normal. It's okay. We ask is to respect boundaries and differences. Obviously, participation is totally up to you. And snack, stretch, pet your cats, pet your dogs, hug your people whenever you need to. So our agenda today is pretty simple. We're going to try to get through a lot in the next like 40 minutes or so, or yeah, 50 minutes. We did our welcome and intros. We're going to talk about the Circles of Sexuality, which is a model for looking at sexuality a little more broadly. We're going to talk about assistive technology and pleasure and how to find assistive technology for sexuality, some things you might want to think about, communication about pleasure, and then we'll just wrap up with a Q&A and we'll have some resources. And if you're able to fill out our feedback survey, we'd really appreciate that too, even people watching on YouTube. All right, so we're gonna jump into the Circles of Sexuality. Let's go. So this is a graphic that I created, but it's based off of the original Circles of Sexuality, which Nova's gonna show you. But I wanted to show you that sexuality is not just male or female, where we write on a paper that we're male or female, or that having a baby. It's so much more than that. It's about the individual person and their journey through whatever goals they have, and whatever that looks like for somebody. So there are the circles that I have here are like related to hygiene and medical, family planning, decisions around that. And then I have a circle that's sexual and platonic, or fun and fulfillment, which is like behaviors and activities that you might want to do that might make you really happy or have a platonic friend. Of course, the next circle is disability accessibility, because we have to think about what kind of access needs we have and how we can reach our goals that way. And then the next circle is connecting with yourself and your intersectional identities, because we know no identity exists in a vacuum. We're all multiple identities, and it's important to connect to that within yourself, so you know what you want, so you know what you can get into. And also LGBTQIA+ is definitely in this circle, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then relationships with others. So it's like the relationship with yourself and relationships with others, because we do have a relationship with ourselves. We really do. And then in the middle of all of this is like support and safety, and just keeping that in mind for all of the circles. So we're going to walk through the model of the Circles of Sexuality, but I just wanted to show you this version that adds accessibility into it.
Okay. So, yeah, I love the model that Izzy came up with. And we're going to break down some of the different pieces from the original model. So on the screen here, it shows a circle with, it's a similar concept, you can probably tell. So there's 5 different sections here with the circles of sexuality, really showing all the different aspects. So like Izzy said, it's not just one thing, even though that is often what the media portrays or how it's treated in classrooms. There's so many different aspects of what we mean by sexuality. And each of these different sections is going to be impacted by power and agency. And agency in this moment, in this context, is about your ability to decide for yourself, and make decisions that are right for you and for your body. Excuse me. So we're going to go through each of these different pieces a little bit more in depth, but just as an overview, the 5 different sections. So there's the first one is sensuality, and then intimacy, sexual orientation and gender identity, sexual and reproductive health, and sexual behaviors and practices. So let's get into it. All right, so sensuality. If we were in a room together, we would do a much more interactive thing here. Like, what does sensuality really mean to you all? I bet each of us has a different definition. And, every time I think about it, I might think of a different aspect, a different sense. But so sensuality, we really are thinking about like our experiences related to our senses. So that can be touch, how something really feels. That can be as simple as like noticing how the fabric of your shirt feels on your body. Like, oh, this is a really soft shirt and it's big and it makes me feel like I'm like a safe little kid in a big shirt. That's a sense that I have. Of course, there's taste, smell, hearing, and vision. We all have different relationships to these senses. And that's part of, paying attention to our relationship with the senses is can be part of sexuality. There's a lot of things to think about here. So it could be like so physical touch is often something we think about in romantic or sexual relationships. But sensual there can be sensual experiences you have alone with yourself, thinking about like taking a bath or a shower. That can feel just having hot water on your body. If you're like me, that's something that is very feels just like so soothing and is really a sensual experience. Um, Body image is part of sensuality as well, like how we feel in our body, and our experience, our feelings, yeah, about our body and like how we feel moving in the world. Fantasy can be part of this too. It's like related to your senses and your imagination. Um, and the sexual response cycle is another part of this that is a little bit more in depth than we probably will have time to get to today. But is just if you're interested in learning more, I really recommend looking up sexual response cycle and learning about this. But there can be like a receptiveness to in sexual desire and when you're in relationship with someone else, that is also about senses. So that can be a cool thing to learn about if you don't know about it already. Okay. So the next slide here is intimacy, and there's a photo of 2 people outside. It felt like spring here in Philadelphia today, so hopefully you got out. And whenever you're watching this recording, I hope it's a nice day too. But the image here are 2 people out on a blanket, smiling and looking very content, kind of cuddling, maybe having a picnic. This is an image that to us really shows an aspect of what intimacy can look like. One person is kind of lying their head on the other person's lap, and they look just very comfortable. They're kind of doing their own thing and just being together. And that can really one thing that I love about it is just like there seems to be like a calm that I can sense about them being together. They are physically close. And so that is something that is part of intimacy for some people. It doesn't have to be, though. There's also emotional intimacy. So that requires us, if you really want to feel emotionally close to people, it means that you do have to be kind of vulnerable. So that can be sharing things about your life when the other person is open to hearing about it. And that can also be like asking and being open to hearing about other people's lives. And oftentimes that's like going through things, maybe positive things together, negative things together, but then being support to each other, which is related to mutual care. So that could be like caring for each other in different ways. Um, and yeah, and sharing is another aspect here too. That could be sharing resources, sharing your feelings, letting somebody know when they hurt your feelings, and being willing to say, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Is there something I can do?" So emotional risk taking is a way of, just admitting when you're wrong, asking for help when you need it. And when we think about accessibility, that can also be wrapped up in intimacy, is like asking for help with access needs and care, and offering support when you can give it as well. So that's just a few notes on intimacy. Always so much more we can say about each of these things. All right. So the next slide here is about sex and gender identity. So we kind of broke up the section that is about sexual orientation and gender identity. There's a lot in this category for sure. And we actually broke it up into 3 slides because it's super important, but it's not more important than the other sections, but there's just a lot of content and it doesn't often get talked about in a lot of spaces. So, contrary to what some people believe, sex and gender are not the same thing. There's a box, an image of a text box on this page that shows an equal sign with a cross through it saying sex does not equal gender. Um, we are all assigned a sex at when we are born. That could be male, female, but there's also folks that don't necessarily fit into one of those boxes. And those folks might identify as intersex or have hormones or genitalia that doesn't neatly fit into a box that fits into one designated sex or another. And those folks might, have different relationships with their gender and sexuality, and bodies. But it's just we know that there isn't just a male female binary when it comes to uh, being assigned a sex. Um, there's another box on this page here that shows gender identity as a triangle. And each section, each of the 3 corners of the triangle have a different gender identity. So there's male, female, and non-binary, all at the different corners of the triangle. And then you can be you, meaning all of us might have a gender identity that's somewhere in the middle. Someone might be identify super like I am a man's man, or I am a real female, woman identified. I was maybe it's the same as your sex assigned at birth, maybe it's not. And then some people identify more as non-binary or somewhere in the middle. You can be anywhere in this little diagram of a triangle. You might also just be like, I don't actually feel like any of this, and I am outside of the triangle. If this is kind of going over your head, or if it's like feeling like not relevant, that's okay. Just know that there's people where this is like really important to understand who they are in their authentic experience. Um, yeah. So that's a little bit there. And just knowing that, yeah, just know that you don't have to fully understand it. We're trying to do kind of like a brief overview, but if you have any questions and want to learn more about these things, like on the next slide that Izzy was just showing us, there's so much we can talk about here. And if you want follow-up, please get in touch with us. We're happy to do more in-depth conversations about these things. So this next slide just shows some different spectrums. So there's a rainbow colored line showing like nothing is one or the other. We all exist on a spectrum around these things. So some of these categories are sexual desire. So it's okay if not everybody is interested in being a sexual being. Our society makes it seem like if you're not having sex, then there's something wrong with you as an adult. But that's not necessarily true. Some people are asexual. Some people have a range, maybe like sometimes I feel I'm a there's under sexual desire, there's like sex repulsed. So someone who's like, I do not, no, not interested. And then on the other end, like, I'm very interested in having sex. You might exist somewhere in the middle, or it might depend on the day or the month or whatever. There's also a spectrum with sexual orientation, also romantic orientation. That could be about like, you can be romantically interested in someone, but not be sexually interested, and vice versa. You might be sexually interested, but you're not really interested in a romantic relationship. And all of these things are okay. So that's the main point, is that like no one lives in a box, no one lives, there is a spectrum of experiences, and it's all okay, it's all normal, as long as we are respecting ourselves and each other. Um, we're glad you exist, and please be yourself. Next slide. So this next slide here just has a couple images. One is a picture of two performers from a group called Drag Syndrome, and highly recommend looking them up if you're not familiar. They have lots of social media, and it's a group of drag performers who have Down syndrome based in United Kingdom, and they go on tour and they do a lot of amazing videos and shows in drag. Um, there's As you all hopefully already know, there's tons of disabled folks who identify as queer, trans, LGBTQ, non-binary. We all have complex identities. There's so many pieces of who we are, and we want to celebrate disabled folks who are also identify as LGBTQ plus. There's another picture here that's a cartoon from the Deaf Queer Resource Center showing folks who are deaf. It's a very cute graphic from their National Deaf LGBTQ Awareness Week. Yeah, so there's lots of vibrant communities who hold many different identities, and this is, one intersection with queer disabled folks who we want to celebrate.
Thanks, Nova, for all that. That was incredible. I always love hearing it again and again and again. So this next circle is the sexual and reproductive health circle, which might be the one that people tend to be the most familiar with because it's what is generally taught. And if you got any sex ed in school, it's what generally is taught, like how to make a baby, STIs. At least in my experience, I did not have the best like sex ed at school. So it was mostly just like scary pictures of STIs on people's genitals. And that's not how you teach about sexual health. But I wanted to show that like this is a really big part of sexuality, but it's not the only part of sexuality. And you have to make sure if you're in a relationship to communicate the risks and decide what you want to do together. But yeah. And then this next circle is sexual behaviors and practices. This is like the actual like behaviors and things that we might want to do. And I'm going to go into that a little bit in the next section about assistive technology. But I wanted to highlight that there is a picture here of a person sitting in a wheelchair and is getting a kiss from someone who is standing, and her leg is like sticking out behind her. It's really cute. And then on the right side is the consent fries model from Planned Parenthood. And we always say like consent is, you can give consent and you can change your mind, and it should be very enthusiastic. So you can look up more about consent on the Planned Parenthood website. But we're not going to get too much into that today. Let's get into assistive technology. So we're talking about sexuality today, so I'm really homing in on that. But assistive technology is so much more than just sexuality and sex toys. So if you're watching this at home right now and you're like, you want to take a minute, maybe think about it. Have you used assistive technology before? And if you're in this group, maybe you have. Maybe you use a wheelchair. Maybe you're literally watching this on your computer. That is assistive technology. Honestly, it's a huge spectrum, huge range. But how do you even decide like what technology is right for you? So we're going to kind of talk through that, through some categories, and show you a new world, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's not a new world to you. But I wanted to highlight some positioning items. So I'm really just going to be going through devices now. So these are positioning. Obviously, they can be used for sex. There are some items on this slide on the left side that are purposefully made for sex. And then on the right side, these items might be more DME, durable medical equipment, but they can also be used for fun. They can be safe too, because they're made to hold people. Like a Hoyer lift is made to hold a person. And it can be used for fun sometimes. I have heard of that. But it just be safe with it. Make sure you're not doing something you shouldn't be doing with it. But these devices help with positioning and just like finding the pleasure centers or parts that might be harder to access. But there's some chairs, there's the intimate rider and rider mate. That was specifically made for people with spinal cord injury to be able to have penetrative sex. So somebody would lay down on the cot side, and then the chair actually has like some movement to it. So it can actually move a lot with just arms. So it's supposed to be really easy to use, and sometimes is covered by insurance. Sometimes. I always hope that it is. Some more positioning. So this one, these are like pillows. So the spectrum of these kinds of devices is huge too. So there's like wedge and ramp combos. There's wedges, wedge pillows that can be used with a partner or alone. And you can get like a really inexpensive one from like any kind of big box store around, because they actually sell them. I think I saw some at Costco, actually. I saw a wedge at Costco this weekend. So just putting that out there, that sometimes assistive technology you can find in unique places. But the next one I wanted to highlight is the Wanda toy mount. And that is a purple pillow type mount, and it can hold a vibrator. So if someone is wanting more sensation and doesn't want to have to hold it by their hands, put it in the pillow. Easy peasy. And it might not work for everybody, because there's different like positioning that might have to be, you have to kind of figure out your own body and what might be best for it. So if your legs don't open very far, this might not be the best option. And then we have a sensual sex lounge chair. But there's so many versions of these kinds of lounge chairs too that you can buy, and they don't even look like sex furniture. So you can just have it out and like no one will know. But getting into more of the assistive tech side of things, we've got our reaches and our grips. I kind of separated this out. So on the top, I guess there's a lot of pictures. I'm not going to be able to like describe them too much in detail, but the top picture is foam grips, and you can buy those so many places, and they're for like markers and spoons and things, but they can be totally used for vibrators and other things. And if you get the larger sized ones, it's possible it might be easier to hold a vibrator using one of these. And then below on the left bottom is a thigh harness. So that's actually meant to put a toy into, and then someone can play with that toy. Or they can actually position the toy so it's touching their own genitals and they don't have to use their hands. I've heard of that as well. And then there's things like universal cuffs, which were made for, again, like everyday items, but you can totally use them for sexuality related stuff too. You can put them around certain toys, but make sure that they also get cleaned along with your toys too. Wanted to mention that. Okay. The next item here is the TouchBot Reach Arm, which is it's a 3D printed arm basically. I wish I had one with me right now to show you, but it has a little pivot and it just makes it easier to masturbate for someone who might want to masturbate and not have that range of motion to reach their genitals. So they might have to use something like the touch bot. And it's 3D printed. They have different sizes of arms, and it holds a dildo on the end, a suction cup dildo. So if someone's looking for some penetration, that's a good place to start. I hope they can make one eventually that can just like hold a vibrator or something. I don't know. One day. And then on the right hand side is the active hands grip. And this can hold very heavy things. And it can help, like, so people use them to work out, but I also say be creative. Can definitely put toys into this and it will help to grip them. So if you need help with grip, these are some tools that you can use. There's a lot of other tools out there too, and it's trial and error by far with all of this. Here's some more mounting. So these are a little bit different. I did show you the Wanda mount already, but on the left side is a blue pillow, and it's like specifically called the Humphrey Sex Pillow because it's made for sex and it's by the Liberator Company, which it's all like waterproof and everything. And you could put a little toy into the pocket of that pillow and lay on top of it or put it on top of you. So it kind of makes it's a little more adaptable. And then hands free as well. And the next one is a black Love Honey suction cup dildo. And this one is basically like I can just suction cup to things. I don't know if you've seen like a few years ago, people were using these to fix their cars because they actually are like strong enough to like pull a dent out of a car. So it can definitely stick to something that's really flat and not porous. And it'll probably be pretty stable there. And that could be a good option for somebody who's looking for that. And then the next picture is the Zolo mountable stroker. And this is actually it has a suction cup on it too. And so people who have penises can use this toy and completely hands-free. It's rechargeable too. So thinking about lots of hands-free stuff, things that make it as easy as possible. And then of course the Wanda toy match, which we have like a little treasure trove of these sex toys, not all of them. But if you're ever curious, then you're like, I really like want to figure out what kind of sex toy I'm like, I just want to see them in person. You can always like make an appointment with us and we can walk you through some of them, show them to you out in the demo room or in the community space. Because sometimes it's hard to imagine what it can feel like, but holding it in your hands can help understand what it might feel more, what you might like. So yeah, those are my mounting. And I'll turn it over to Nova.
Okay, so the next slide here, there's two devices on this one. So one has already been on another slide is the toy harness that is it's shown as on the thigh. So it typically is a thigh harness, but there are different sizes and variations of this type of thing. And it's designed to have either a dildo or a vibrator, usually it could be any kind of toy that would fit, but usually it's something that is some kind of phallus that can be used with a partner. So there are versions you can put it on your arm. There's actually some that you could put on your head. And it's designed to interact with another partner. So it's just something to think about. And I love what Izzy was saying, like you could actually even put it on another object. I started thinking of like those pool noodles or like those like other things to use with yourself or someone else as well. So lots of possibilities, like really just trying to help people get a little more like think outside the box. There are these toys you can buy. There's also like you might have things in your house that would make it more functional for you that we're just not thinking about. The other device on here is called the O-Nut buffer rings, and this is also for penetration. But so there's lots of folks that have pain who enjoy penetration, but it causes pain. And there's this really cool device that's called the O-Nut, and it is kind of like a soft silicone, but it creates a little bit of a barrier. So you can put it on a toy or on a penis so that it won't go quite as deep into um another person who maybe just like needs it to be not go so deep so that it's not as painful. So and it is adjustable, so you can create less of a barrier or more of a barrier based on what you need. So it's a really cool toy. Next slide, please. All right. So this slide is talking about vibrators, and we're not going to talk about it too much because I know we want to make sure we have time for the last few slides. But there's something to know is that there's really cool different versions of vibrators out there, all sizes, all different kinds of intensities, and most of them have different options of intensity as well. There's the Miss B Vibe that has a ring where you can hold to give you a better grip. So someone who like maybe would like to be able to hold on to a little easier, this might be a good option. Um, there's also the We Vibe chorus, which is something that can be really fun to also use with a partner, potentially, but is again another shape that will work, that might work better for some bodies. And then there's the Starsy Vibe, which is really cool. And this one is shaped like a little starfish, and it's designed to work for any kind of bodies, any kind of, you can use it on your genitals, you can use it on anywhere that would feel good to receive vibration. And it's designed to be gender inclusive. And also it just kind of like sits on your palm or could easily sit on a surface so might be a little bit easier for in terms of grip as well for some folks. Next slide, please. So this slide is about cleanup and aftercare. So you can't really talk about toys and assistive technology without talking about how to take care of your bodies and take care of your tools. They really are just tools available. And so again, thinking about everyday things that can help you out. So a portable urinal. This is something that maybe you don't think of in terms of your sexuality or being part of, something that's sexy, but it could make having sex a little bit easier if you know that you're going to need to go to the bathroom immediately after you have sex or immediately before, and you want to make sure that you do that. Like, let's demystify it. Let's just say this is like one of the tools that you need. Just have it available in case you need it, or plan out when you're going to use it so that you can have an easier, more relaxing time when you're having sex. Snacks, that's a super important aspect of taking care of yourselves and thinking about accessibility. There's diffusers, so thinking about like sensory experiences. Again, this doesn't have to be sexual, but it could be. So like, are there essential oils that you enjoy? Or do you just I mean, it's not as deep winter, we're turning into spring now, but like making sure that like the climate in the space is gonna meet your needs. So thinking about heating and cooling, and is the air so dry? Or just like what do you need to do to be more comfortable? And thinking of that as part of taking care of yourself and your partner. Um, Yes. Okay. And then, of course, cleaning up. So, wipes, you can clean up your body. They're so useful. This is part of setting yourself up for success around sexuality. There are specific toy cleaners that are good for using with sex toys. And so that is something to think about. But even just using soap and water, if that's what you got, just make sure that you're taking care of if something has a motor or batteries, just making sure that part does not get submerged in water. Waterproof sheets are something that can be really fun. So if you're someone who deals with incontinence or, like you have a lot of body fluids when you have sex. All of these things are normal and fine. And waterproof sheets, there can be some that are really kind of, like fun to use. Like these ones on the image here are black and kind of slick. But you can also use incontinence pads, like insurance might be covering them already for you. Like, let's normalize using the tools that we have and the products that we have. So if you're worried about getting sheets wet, you want to maybe you're having sex in your wheelchair and you want to just make sure that your wheelchair stays clean and dry. Go ahead and use a pad. That's totally fine. All right, I'll pass it over.
Thanks, Nova. I love that you said use the products that we already have, because we often already have a lot of things. And I love that about the incontinence pad. Um, so when we're enjoying some pleasure, whether it be with a partner or by ourselves, we might have to communicate with some people about that, and about making sure that we can access our pleasure. And this is going to look different for everyone. But over the years, we've heard different things that people tell about how to communicate if somebody like wants to masturbate, for instance, and they don't want to have to say it every single time to their care person or whoever's like helps with your personal care. You don't want to have to say it like every single time. So maybe coming up with like some sort of signal, like a bell or turning on a certain light. And that's like you both know, you mutually know that this is the time that whether you're going to go and be in private or they need to help you set up something first. But like having that kind of signal can be so helpful because then you don't have to verbalize it every single time. And schedule time if you can. I know it's like not super sexy to be like schedule time to have sex or schedule time to masturbate, but sometimes as people with disabilities, I think sometimes it might be put on the back burner for other things. And it's important to kind of like carve out that time and make sure that you have time to do that and enjoy, because it might take time to set up things or it might take time to clean up. But of course, we always recommend establishing clear boundaries with your people, and asking for help if you're like got a friend who might be more comfortable helping you set up for your masturbation session or to help position you with a partner. But with all of that said, there's a lot of different ways to communicate about this. And if you're curious right now, if you're like, oh my God, I'm in a situation where I don't know what kind of signal would work or what kind of communication might work, you can always reach out to us. We might be able to help provide some support and advice in that area. But I also wanted to highlight that pleasure doesn't have to be sexual. You can use the toys and massage yourself. You can use the toys and just play around with them. It doesn't necessarily have to be sexual. And I want to say this, that while orgasms can be great, they shouldn't be the end goal of session, right? Like we want to enjoy ourselves. And I think like we're taught to be very goal oriented, I think, in that way. And it doesn't always have to be the case. You can be fluid with it. Pleasure doesn't have to be sexual. So, with that said, if you want to take a second while you're watching this video to try the meditation, you might want to pause the video. But basically, I think a good way to kind of figure out what you like connect to your body as a person with a disability is by meditating a little bit. So set the scene. Where are you going to decide to do this meditation? You can just be in your wheelchair doing the meditation. No problem. Wherever you're comfortable. It could be the bed. It could be in a park, even. As long as you're not touching yourself too inappropriately, you can do this outside. Um, but breathe slowly first if that is available to you. Deepen your breath and start by just using your hands. Really key into the feeling of like the touch, like even just like touching the tip of your nose. Your nose is really sensitive. Um, and just kind of like keying into that mindfulness moment of like, this is what it feels like. This, you feel the pressure, the temperature of your finger, the texture. So, like, really kind of keying into those sensual feelings. Notice it, name it if you want to name it. And you can expand on this practice in so many different ways. You can use sex toys if you want to try. Um, you can take it further and go into a masturbation session if you want to, because it might help to really relax. Um, take 5 minutes or take like 2 hours, whatever you like. Honestly, there's no right way to do this. But I think I just recommend everyone try it at least once or twice to kind of check back in with yourself, check back in with your body and be like, hey, what am I missing? What am I missing here? Maybe I really like cold things and I'm not using enough cold stuff, or, it could be so many different things. But I highly recommend just trying this to like get to deepen the relationship with yourself. And that's what we have for you today. Thank you so much. We have a little time for Q&A if anyone has questions. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can totally email us and I'll make sure I put up we have a survey. If you could do the survey and you're watching on YouTube, please do the survey. We really appreciate it. And if you're here in person, we would love for you to scan the QR code, or I can always send you the link. What was I saying? I thought I had something else to show. I guess I did.
Maybe we want to just quickly go through the resources
Yes, yeah.
for the recording. Yeah. So yeah, so on this, there's tons of links here that obviously you can't click on it if you're watching the recording. But there's in terms of support, if you're feeling any kind of, immediate needs around mental health, or if you're having kind of a crisis moment, or if you're dealing with any kind of violence. We know that talking about sex and sexuality can bring a lot for people, bring up a lot of feelings. There is a ton of different resources out there, including our contact information, which we'll be sharing here as well. And there's support based on kind of like communities that you belong to, including there's support for LGBTQ plus folks. Yeah, there's so there's some resources listed here for Pennsylvania. There's a lot of resources too around sexuality and disability. So, like, if you're interested in learning more about things, or like seeing some videos of disabled folks talking about what's important to them around sexuality and talking about consent and doing some sex ed, there's some really great resources out there, and there's some links shown here. There's resource hubs. So if you're like, there's one topic, like I want to learn about how to teach about, or like, how do I get information across about puberty for people, or whatever the thing is. Planned Parenthood is always a great resource. There's also Healthy Understanding of Our Bodies, or Hub, is an amazing resource hub. So you can look that up. And there's lots of great resources out there, including, please add us to your list of resources. Our email addresses are here and our phone numbers. And there's also a request form on our website for trainings and education, whether that's a one-on-one education or a group education that you are interested in. We love doing workshops and making them interactive when we can, and always happy to talk about topics that are important to you. Yay.
Thank you.
Izzy
Yeah.
and Nova, thank you so much for such an informative and fantastic presentation. We really appreciate it.